into the ordinary meeting of council. General Manager, could you read the advice concerning the recording of the meeting?
Mr Mayor, this council meeting is being recorded in accordance with council's webcasting of council's meetings policy. The recording will be archived and made available for viewing at any time on council's YouTube channel for a minimum period of 12 months. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, if you are in attendance in the public gallery, you should be aware that your presence may be recorded. Your continued attendance means that you agree to being recorded and also that you will abide by the council's adopted code of meeting practice. The chairperson or general manager have the discretion to interrupt the recording of any meeting at any time should it be deemed necessary. This may occur in circumstances where commentary is considered to be misleading, defamatory or inappropriate to be published, or where behaviour breaches council's adopted code of meeting practice. Councillors and senior staff are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed, and for the benefit of those viewing online, please ensure you use the microphone when speaking and turn it off when you are finished.
Meeting commences at 6:25. Could I ask all who are able to please stand for the prayer and acknowledgement of country? Almighty God, give wisdom to those in authority and guide all peoples in the way of righteousness and peace, so that we may share with justice the resources of the earth, work together in trust and seek the common good. I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri people and recognise the strength, resilience and capacities of the Aboriginal people in this land. You may all be seated. Moved on. Apologies and attendance by audio-visual links. General Manager, are there any apologies or approvals required of attendance by audio link?
Mr Mayor, there are no approvals required.
Thank you. We move to item 6.1, confirmation of minutes, ordinary council meeting, 19th of February 2025. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Underwood, Councillor Fry. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to declaration of interest. Item 7.1, declaration of interest. General Manager, do we have any declarations of interest?
Mr Mayor, I have a number of declarations. Councillor Packham, in the Director of Corporate Services and Financial Confidential Report 1.4 concerning the lease of 5 Wark Parade. One from myself concerning the Mayoral Confidential Minute 1.1, Financial Sustainability and Governance Accountability. One from Councillor Fry with respect to the Director of Corporate Services Confidential Report 1.2, the tender for the design and installation for the illumination for the Bathurst Winter Festival. And further, another one from Councillor Fry with respect to the Director of Corporate Services and Financials Confidential Report 1.1, the tender to do with the hire of the ice rink and associated infrastructure for the Winter Festival.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Packham, Councillor Cranston. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8, Merrill Minute 8.1, Minute Financial Sustainability and Governance Accountability. I'll move it. Is it, councillors, any discussion? Councillor Pryor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks for this Merrill Minute. I think it is necessary. As a community and councillors know, we've again dipped into deficit in the general fund, which is our fund that does everything outside of water and waste, water and sewer. Effectively, that means we need to bring it back to a black position pretty quickly. And whilst it's disappointed that this breach has occurred a second time, now is the time that we move away from the board style of monitor. We need to partner. We effectively are accountable for the revenue of this council, and we need to make sure that we're doing what we can to support any kind of executive solutions, and some of those solutions definitely came from the floor. The gentleman's left tonight, but I can imagine land sales will play a part. I commend the idea of a financial sustainability committee, Mr. Mayor. I feel like a couple of councillors working alongside executive and finance officers is going to put eyes on the accounts, helping those strategies and action plans, and building a city that we see fit and right for size for the amount of revenue we do have currently. So we need to act quickly to bring that position back. And it will take a couple of weeks, if not months, to make sure that we're, articulating and executing a necessary plan to turn this around. I'd also like to commend, and I think I'll know that Councillor Wright, as the ARIC representative, is happy to take this to the Audit Risk Improvement Committee. I think they'll be on a need-to-know basis. They'll be looking at this pretty carefully and providing recommendations to the council in their next report about what to do from there. And then, of course, we have some other discussions later on in confidential about accountability and about what this community expects when you're talking about public funding. That's a matter for councillors and it's a staffing matter, so we'll talk about that. But it's important, and I think the Merrill Minute really speaks to that. I would like to nominate somebody to join us on this sustainability committee, and I've been talking with Councillor Cranston about her potential presence on this. So if she doesn't mind, I'd like to nominate her as the first other member to sit on there with yourself and myself.
Thanks, Councillor Fry. Councillor Cranston, would you accept that? Thank you, Councillor Cranston. Accept that. We'll have another discussion for a further nomination. Yes, Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we're nominating councillors, if so, I'd like to put forward Nick Packham for experience with a multi-million-dollar NGO. I think he'd be good on this committee.
Thank you, Councillor Underwood. Councillor Packham, do you accept that position? Thank you, Councillor Packham. Any further discussion, councillors? Yes, Councillor Wright.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor, and I want to express my appreciation for really showing incredible leadership on this and supporting the Mayor to get this motion to this minute to the table. I'm absolutely looking forward to taking this to the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee, certainly with item 1 firmly in hand, which will be the comprehensive financial report. What I'm really wanting to understand when we see that is the process of events. I mean, the Deputy Mayor raised a policy item a few months ago, probably a bit longer than that now actually, where we would get a snapshot view of Council's finances as an additional report as part of ordinary meetings, and so understanding how at that time, this is not that that's failed, but how we got to this position, what the communication was. I really want to understand it quite granularly. So thank you for getting that sorted, guys. Very excited that we're going to have 2 very skilled people on that board alongside the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, because we really need to know what happened in order to understand the way to resolve it moving forward. And then the final thing I just want to note is, we talk a lot about accountability, transparency, things like that. But I just want to recognise that there is a second part to accountability, and that's consequence. We can hold people accountable and say, oh yeah, that's my fault, or not even just personally, but the system. There has to be consequences. There has to be governance change in the way that we do things. So I just want to highlight that as a piece as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Are there any further discussion? Yeah, Councillor Orban.
Probably a little bit of shut the gate, the horse is bolted here, but our leadership team, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, you've been together for about 5 years, less period of time when Councillor Jennings was at the helm. Can I just ask you, why has it taken this long to come up with this? Why wasn't it 5 years ago when you guys got together to come up with this, when we have been in this position for quite a while? Just seems like to me this is panic stations and it should have been happening before.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.2, mayoral minutes, registration of interest for development of council land at 56 Colwood Street, Windradyne. I'll move it. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Council, we now move to the General Managers and Directors report. Receive and deal with the General Managers and Directors report. Councillors, we now move to the Director of Environmental Planning and Building Service report. Item 1.1, Section 4.15 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Cranston, Councillor Wright. Councillors, any discussion? Councillors, no discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 1.2, General Report. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Gulliver, Councillor Fry. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. Councillors, I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 1.3, Regional Precincts and Partnerships Program, Stream 1. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Wright, Councillor Cranston. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Wright.
So just with this funding, I'm just taking note. So clearly this funding is very much about smart cities, and I just want to recognise there's obviously been a lot of concern in the community with the world changing so much since COVID, and I just want to recognise there's been a lot of outcry in the public forum at the rally that was held in 2023 of people expressing their concern around this project. And I mean, I would like to learn more about it before I hold too much of a position on it myself, but I'm just recognising that the consultation on this project was face-to-face workshops, an online feedback forum, and then engagement with village residents. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think that's a particularly robust community engagement on that project, and even through the policy itself, most of the quotes are actually taken from school children in support of this project. So it does stipulate in this report, smart poles, connected street furniture, charging stations, a sustainable smart town centre. I just want to recognise that I think we actually do need to be very robust about our community consultation for this. I appreciate that it actually highlights there is going to be a lot more community consultation as part of the grant funding. And I just want to note that we have to advertise that very clearly in simple language, that smart cities and that initiative is what we're talking about with this project, so that people who are interested in this and passionate about this can turn up and speak respectfully and have their voices heard, because I personally feel like they weren't heard at the time that this policy was adopted, and we really want to get that right this time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further discussion? Yeah, Councillor Gulliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just looking over this, what we're talking about, the Town Centre Master Plan was part of that back in the day. And I just need to get some clarification on it, where it says the Town Centre Master Plan was adopted by Council. I thought it wasn't adopted. I thought it was used as a reference. And I can recall it cost about $200,000, and there's 200 pages and half a page on business in that 200 pages. So in reference to what Councillor Wright just said, I think the businesses need to be a little bit more involved with what going forward. And in the attachments, if I can read it right, and if I'm not, let me know. But we've come up with on page 33 of 154. It's 2.2 million for a plan, but there's nothing there that's going towards infrastructure. Have I got that right?
Yes, Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's multiple layers to those, so bear with me if I go through them in no particular order. Correct, Councillor Gulliver, that the funding is to get to the project describes as investment ready. That was what the funding stream was for. So yes, there was some concept work done many years ago. that needs to be converted into project-ready status, so detailed design rather than concept planning across the various types of infrastructure that are proposed. In other words, the funding is not for works on the ground. In regard to consultation, the proposal is loaded with language around co-design. In other words, the community will be party to the final scope of works. Yes, there is a layer of building on the smart communities strategy, new technologies that continually evolve, but I would like to emphasise that's one of many layers of the project scope, and it'll be all of those layers will be looked at equally rather than any particular preference. The Town Centre Master Plan was adopted as a discussion paper, yes. So adopted, but as a discussion paper. So it was never rejected, but it has never been advanced. Further to consultation, the proposal is that there be a multi-stakeholder project steering committee, a project control group, which will include the business chamber, and they have expressed an interest in participating already.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Yes, Councillor Wright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say this is to the Director of Environmental Planning and Building Services, perhaps, I'm not sure. The project governance team, so it says here a project advisory group has been proposed with the following membership. It includes the Business Chamber, Business New South Wales West, Charles Sturt University, the Lands Council, and both Bathurst Local Area Command. Are we putting out an expression of interest of any form for other groups who might want to participate in this project governance group? And what is the role of it? How is this group going to actually work?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that list was what was proposed in the grant application, and therefore has that status. That was what was proposed at the time. If councillors have a different view, then happy to take the councillor's advice on that. It wasn't so much to be, at the time, it wasn't contemplated that it be an open-ended expression of interest type process, because at the time, those groups expressed support, gave letters of support to the actual project, and that was what helped carry the funding grant, the grant of the funding. So open to other models, but that was a starting point that was successful in the funding proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Any further discussion? Councillor Cranston.
A quick question. It probably ties more back into the consultation around the CSP that hasn't quite been developed yet. But one of the things is probably around revitalising the CBD, and I think we were all keen for that. So certainly, at what point, if any, is there opportunity for councillors to really go, okay, we'd like to, out of all of that, as a director, to be to focus on, say, one specific part, which might be, you know, we're looking at getting trees to take precincts, that kind of thing. As you know, as a clear directive of where to stand, and I know I'm not meaning to speak for others, but what does that look like for us to give you some kind of guidance, so you're not trying to put a third in each of those key spots?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's actually fortunate timing that the grant is available around the time that the CSP is being developed. So I think there's ample opportunity for synergies between those two bodies of work. There is flexibility in the way the funding can be allocated, because the funding is not specific to any particular piece of infrastructure, but rather themes that might be co-designed with the community. So having said that there's flexibility available in the funding, Mr. Mayor, nonetheless there will be expectations on what we said we would deliver. We have not yet received the funding deed, which is likely to summarise those expectations. So we still need just that little bit of time to massage some of that stuff into place.
Thank you, Mr. Yes, Councillor Cranston. Well, we have a malfunction. Up, it's on. On now.
And I've lost my train of thought. No, completely lost it.
You're right, Councillor
What was
Cranston, you
your
sure?
last comment? Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, my final comment was around, we've not yet received the funding deed. So whilst we expect there to be flexibility, we don't quite know what the expectations of the funding body will be. So we need to marry that into the scope.
Now, Councillor Cranston.
And so my question was around the funding deed. Does that actually reflect the grant application? Sorry, in what way does the funding deed reflect the grant application? And then therefore we need to match it. And is it possible for us to view the grant application?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the grant application was made available to councillors shortly after a briefing that occurred. The grant is actually fairly loose around exactly what will be provided because it emphasises a co-design process. So that must be appealing to the funding body, and therefore one hopes that the funding deed will reflect that flexibility in allowing a co-design process to occur.
Thank you. Question, Councillor?
So what I was just going to ask is that leads me to believe, and can you confirm this, that there is, sounds like there's huge flexibility to maybe focus on one or two key spots.
I'm expecting that flexibility will be available, but this, as of today, without the funding deed, I can't be specific in any particular element that might be happily left behind. I keep coming back to the application was based upon there being co-design with the community. And so we're yet to design what that will look like. Again, the application was fairly open around that. So there's still a few of those building blocks to be locked in before we know exactly where that might take us.
Yes, Councillor Cranston.
Sorry, was it taken on notice that we'd be able to get a copy of that, or where do we find the grant application?
Mr. Director.
Mr. Mayor, I requested to be put on the councillor portal. I will double check that occurred and will put it on the councillor portal if it's not already there. So I don't need to take that on notice.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for, against, carried. We move to councillors. We now move to the Director of Corporate Service and Finances report. Councillor move to item 2.1. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fry, Councillor West. Councillor, any discussion? Councillor Orban.
Just a quick one. I know this came up before from a member of the public, but we still have, and I know it's on fixed term, a deposit at Westpac for $1.5 million, which is still at 1.25%. What's the actual penalty for taking that money off the long-term deposit?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the current numbers as at the end of January or February, before me, but the previous time when we looked at, when I was made aware of that one, we'd actually come back with a lesser principal amount because of the penalty provisions that are contained within the early termination on that particular investment.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillor Orban.
Because the interest we're getting paid is about $18,750 a year. If that was put now to the average 5.28, 5.27, that'd be over $79,000 a year. And we've still got till June next year before that becomes available. So I would imagine we're not going to be hit that much, would we?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the previous calculation that was undertaken revealed that if we'd had taken the early termination and then reinvested at the prevailing rate, we would have been, in round numbers, $40,000 worse off. I know the finance team are watching this one quite closely, and they are doing monthly assessments to determine whether, at what point does it get back to at least a break-even perspective, so that we can actually start reinvesting that money wisely.
Thank you, Mr. Rickman. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Wright.
Something, so I feel like this has kind of come full circle in a way, because it's been a 2-year investigation into council's finances for myself and some of our friends. I just want to highlight something so we're talking about restricted cash and unrestricted cash, and it was something that I really drilled home in on the barn conversation. And I think of this statement from Ron Honig in a news article where he's talking about the financial pressures in local government. And he said, the solution isn't always throwing money at them. The solution is, I think, to give councillors greater oversight and control of their expenditure. And it reminded me of the fact that when the previous councillors approved the $430,000 tender for the architect for barn, they did that without having seen a business case. They did that without having seen the financial modelling for the project. They did that with very, very little information on the barn project itself. And I want to highlight why that becomes a problem. So in 2019, so part of our analysis that we did on council's this is the maintenance backlog. So this analysis goes back to 2011, 2012. We look at a period in time prior to 2015 where our council was actually quite healthy. When you take out all of the land sales and asset sales and grant funding, and you get the net operating result for council, which is probably the most pure number that gives you what the health of the business is. And we know that we've historically relied on these cash sales to keep our operational side of the business afloat. So 2011 to 2015, we had a pretty healthy council. We roughly operated an average deficit of $4.4 million. And, we had the maintenance backlog. It wasn't as bad as it obviously used to be. But then come sort of 2017 onwards, we're looking at an average of negative 18.2 million as a net operating result average for that amount of years. And I want to highlight some decisions that were being made at that time, just to really drill home on what I got on council for was to make really sound financial decisions, as tough as they were going to be. So in 2019, our council was operating at a net operating result of negative 13.5 million. In that year, we decided to open another railway museum. At that point, every single one of our museums were cost centres. We did that. We spent another $2 million on that to build that. 2021, we opened the Central Tablelands Collections Facility. I think we put a couple of million of ratepayer funds towards that. We were operating at a net operating result of negative $22.9 million. So this is our underlying cash balance when you take out all of those asset sales. This is what Ron Honig is referring to. Yes, there is cost shifting. Yes, COVID hurt us. Yes, all of these things. But cost shifting isn't new. It's COVID. Our financial situation was horrid before COVID came along. What we have a history of doing in this council, I believe, and it wouldn't just be cultural things as well, it just happens to be the one that I've investigated, and anyone else is able to investigate them themselves. But we have a habit of taking that free grant money and building things that become cost centres. So for that to be the historic situation, and then last month we approved a project that if, as I said, $44,000 profit that it's claimed to make is not a very big window. It is a huge, huge risk for this council, because 1 year, one more COVID, we talk all through our delivery plan about the art gallery sales in the shop are dismal because of the cost of living crisis. Yet we're willing to put all of our eggs in one basket that this facility is going to, break even. And that decision's been made. It's done. The 5 councillors supported that project. But I just want to highlight, guys, this is part of why we got here. It's these types of decisions and that lack of information, and it wasn't necessarily the councillors of the day's fault that they didn't have the business plan. It should be provided to councillors. So it's a really sad state of affairs. It's such a big part of why we got here, and I just want to, drill home on that tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further discussion? Councillor Cranston.
Can I just make a couple of comments? Because I think I actually was on radio and I had someone ring me and go, nah, they didn't call me Councillor Cranston. The way you explained it was really made sense. Like, we get it. And essentially what it is council have this bucket of money. Obviously, most of it is put aside for things that you almost rainy day things. So things that you can't spend it, you can't touch it. Council then has unrestricted funds. So at the end of February, we had $300,000 in unrestricted funds. The current balance, as at the end of at the end of January, it was 300,000. At the end of February, that balance is minus 7.3 million. So for clarity, it's not like the unrestricted funds went from 20 to 13. They went from 300,000 to minus $7 million. Have we done any forecasting around where we're going to end up? And is that forecasting weekly, monthly, daily? What does that look like?
Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, we have done a projection through to 30 June. And on the assumption that we do nothing, and I'm not by any suggestion recommending that is our outcome, but on the assumption that we do nothing, our projection is that we'll end up with a negative unrestricted cash position of around 13.3 million.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillor Cranston.
So has that got all land sales removed from that estimate? And is that the worst it's going to get? Because I imagine with a May drop of rates, that it might get significantly worse before it gets better again?
Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's on the presumption of no land selling between now and 30 June.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillor Cranston.
And to answer my other question, it's projected at 13 million at 30 June. What's the maximum figure it's projected to get to between now and 30 June?
Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's our worst case scenario. So that's where we're anticipating an absolute worst case of $13.3 million.
I appreciate that, but it will move about on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. Is it going to hit 20 before it comes back to 13 or something, like just figures?
Mr Director.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to have to take that one on notice. I don't have that number in my head, but I would anticipate, yes, it will drop below. Sorry, it will worsen because in that $13.3 million is the 4th instalment of rates that are due end of May, which returns a positive injection back to our cash position. So on the assumption of nothing, then yes, absolutely, the 13 will deteriorate, but improve to a bad position still by 30 June.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillor Fry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and it's been some decent points made, I think, and it highlights the future of budgeting for this council, and that is without land sales. Effectively, we can't rely on them because of external market forces. And moving forward, I think one of the functions of this committee that you put in that Merrill Minute is suggestions of future budgeting, but also the opposite of what the worst case scenario says, do nothing. This is us doing something and coming up with action plans that, we can employ to make sure that this is corrected. I feel like we need to start looking at our budget on a right sizing viewpoint. We need to ensure that we're looking at the budget without land sales whatsoever, and then when land sales do come about and our developments go ahead, than they are rainy day funds and, funds for extracurricular projects, events, and those kind of things that make this a beautiful, livable city. So it does need a correction in the way we think as councillors when we're setting budget, when we're expecting revenue, but also commercialisation. And I think a large part of the immediate future is the opposite of do nothing. It's do everything everywhere all at once. And a large part of that is going to be the land sale piece. And I know us as a council have already put some things into play already about releasing those blocks, especially at Windy 1100, but in other areas across the city to agents to ensure that we are attacking this through all markets and all of the connection points of all the agents in the city. So it'll take a little time, but we're looking at discussions with that committee, and thank you, councillors, for being a part of it. We'll need to be thinking long and hard and meet weekly on that one. So thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Councillor Queensland. Oh,
Can I just confirm that we've got, we're talking about budget, can I just confirm we've got a budget, we've obviously got a profit and loss, and we've got a cash flow, that we've got all three of those and they're all interlinking and we're watching all of those on an ad needed basis? And what is that basis that we're watching those things?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do. And to what extent we watch them? We detail analyse them on a monthly basis. But that being said, the finance team, in partnership with the respective cost centre managers, if alarm bells pop up, they actually jump on it reasonably quickly in that space there. But from a formal monitoring perspective, that's done monthly.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Yes, Councillor Wright.
This is a question for you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, a lot of conversations have been happening since the working party last week where we discussed this situation. Can I ask what ideas that you're bringing to the table in those discussions, just because I've had a chat with other people, but what ideas are you bringing to, because we're still just talking about land sales realistically, and we're trying to avoid that. So we actually have to look at operational and internal measures. And I'm not hearing a lot about specifics of that. And I understand the purpose of the group and I get that. But we're also, discussing it right now and we've got people watching at home and in the audience. What are the ideas that you have brought to the table in terms of real hard things we can actually be getting done in the interim, land sales aside?
Thanks, Councillor Wright. There's another minute going forward in confidential, which you'll all receive before confidential, and we'll discuss it in that. And those discussions will be then what's going forward. Yes, Councillor Wright.
I'm sure some of the ideas, though, perhaps aren't needing, like I get the confidential nature of the conversation, but for the community, is there any ideas that, so for example, I was listing, shortening opening hours of the museum, postpone or delay CapEx, put the heavy roller over overtime, negotiate delayed or part payments to vendors and or pay the last possible day, offer discounts to debtors for early payments, asset sales. Just are there any other, and if you don't want to answer, Mr. Mayor.
You pretty well covered most of it.
But we can't talk about any to the public right now.
Mr. General.
Maybe I can just broad. A number of those are being looked at, but obviously they have sensitive issues with respect to, particularly if you're talking things such as operational hours, because there are obviously industrial implications. I'm not saying things will or won't happen, but certainly there are a number of looking at those. Definitely deferrals of items, and there will be a report come to the night of the policy meeting, which will address a number of those issues, but particularly the short-term revenue item, as in getting the investments in line. But there are a number of service deliveries that we're looking at, and they're to build on things such as the Kelso Community Hub, where we've changed the methodology, and that service delivery will be a better delivery given the nature of what's been proposed, we hope, with the medical services. And in fact, I signed the lease for that today. So there will be a number of those looking at some of the services.
Yes, Councillor West.
I'd just like to say that I think it's slightly inappropriate to be putting one councillor on the spot, requesting ideas from that one councillor when we've formed a committee to do that work. So I would prefer that that discussion isn't had and people aren't put on the spot and we wait until the committee that's been formed decides what will be done.
Thank you, Councillor West. Councillor Wright.
Transparency when it suits, hey. So the last thing I would like to say just about the report is can we get a report, so the committee that's going to meet, can we get a report from that committee meeting that will go in the public ordinary paper that the community will be able to see? So however long that committee's meeting, and there'll be like minutes or a report, or obviously things need to be redacted, I get that. But can that report in some way form a part of the ordinary agenda so that we're just keeping the community as in check as possible?
Yes, the General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would have seen that it would be just treated like the Traffic Committee, the Policy Committee, the Youth Committee. So I was expecting that there would be the report of the minutes. Yeah. Quite possibly, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would see there is that discussion of having it every week, but the committee members need to decide is, probably early on every week, but then as it goes, you may say, look, fortnightly may be enough. I don't know, but certainly it was my intention that it would be like, as I said, the Policy Committee, because I see this as being set up as a Section 355 Committee of Council, and it's appropriate that it gets reported.
Yeah, thank you, General Manager. Councillor West, question?
While I think that transparency is important and it's important to be recorded, I'm wondering if there might be some of the things that are being decided that need to be handled quite carefully, because quite possibly they're going to impact on people in the community, and so some sort of preparation, explanation, introduction to the sorts of ideas that may be proposed might be sort of lessen the shock, if you like. They just might need to be handled quite carefully.
Thank you, Councillor West. Councillor Cranston.
Sorry, just one more quick question. It's my understanding there's a meeting with the Office of Local Government. Could you talk to just briefly what that is, when it is, and what it would look like, and any possible consequences that we might be looking at?
Yes, General Manager. The same.
Yes, there is a meeting scheduled with the Office of Local Government. That meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. It was originally to mainly be council officers and representatives of the Office of Local Government. After speaking with the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, I requested that we have council representation there. So the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor will be going. Probably the initial focus of the meeting will be to talk about our deficit figure, how that's going to be potentially addressed, what items that the Office of Local Government might suggest, but I wouldn't want to try and presume or preempt what they suggest, but it's definitely tomorrow. So it's as quickly as we could get it in, and it is with the Director General.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Wright.
One last question, because it might be the elephant in the room and for members of the general public. Could we actually get put into administration based on what's happened and, forecasting another 13 million? Is that a reality? And what does that look like if it was to happen?
Yes, General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't see it as being a direction. Normally, councils are put into administration where they're dysfunctional. Now, this council is not dysfunctional, and one of the testing matters they do is they look at, councils can disagree, but they look at your decision-making processes. And from what my feedback is always to them, say we've got 50 items on the agenda, 48 are 9-0 in voting. So I don't see the council's dysfunctional. There's always robust debate. So I don't see that. If there was to be any action on this, generally in this space, there might be an improvement order Now, whether one happens, I don't know, but an improvement order is where the government gives you directions, we need you to achieve X, Y, Z, and then you report back on it. And there is varying levels of putting a financial advisor on or to link into the council, but that will obviously be a matter for discussion in the future. But at this stage, I wouldn't see every case that I've seen of a council being dismissed and an administrator, it's where the council's dysfunctional.
Thank you, General Manager. No further discussion. I'll now put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Now move to item 2.2, monthly review, 2024-2028 delivery plan and operational plan, 2024-2025. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor West, Councillor Underwood. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Wright.
Just a couple of items from this one. So firstly, I just want to know, I'll just ask all the questions at once and then I'll sit down to save for getting them down. So when will the community survey be released to the public is the first one. The second one was that I notice the art gallery shop sales are in here, but not the museums. Could maybe we can focus on, because these are retail shops, we're talking about takings and stuff. So for the art gallery, could we also include the museum sales so that we can manage that side of the retail thing? So that's the second one. Community survey, can we get the museum sales? And then the last one is that we're talking about freedom of information requests in here, and I have asked this via email, but perhaps I can just get it on the record because I know one of the applicants is in the room. A freedom of information request was submitted for the survey results from the Barn Your Say survey, and the response was that 11 hours work at a cost of $300. And I just wanted to know, what was the 11 hours work? Because councillors have a copy of these survey results that are redacted already. So I just wanted to know what the cost was actually for in regards to those freedom of information requests.
Mr. Director, General Manager.
We may spread the answers around between us if you don't mind. Community survey, it's out on our website. Okay. So it's available to anyone who wishes to get that. The shop sales, I'll hand over to the Director of Cultural and Community Services.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this particular report is focused on those items that are orange, in other words, not meeting targets, which is the case with the art gallery. All of the museums, shops are on target to meet their budgets for the year.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Can I just make a comment? This report has been altered in its format after Councillor Cranston requested that, because the attachment's about 80 pages long, and what was requested was that those that are red or orange rather than green, so they're actually repeated in the back, but the orange or red ones are brought forward so that I know you just get hundreds of pages to read, so it's to try and make it easier. And and definitely, if there are suggestions like that on other reports, let us know, because we're just so used to seeing the same report that it doesn't. We don't know there's an issue. So that was the basis of that. And Aaron, the Director of Corporate Services and Finance, I'll put you to the Gipper.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've got your email, which I think came in just over the weekend. A response is being prepared and will be provided to you. Ideally, you would have already got it. We've been somewhat distracted. But, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Move to item 2.3, sundry section 356 donations, Buffers and Moore Entertainment Centre, Community Use Subsidy and Mount Panorama Fee Subsidy. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor West, Councillor Cranston. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Move to item 2.4, power of attorney. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Cranston, Councillor Gulliver. Councillors, any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Move to item 2.5, request for financial assistance, 2025 Hockey New South Wales Women's Master Tournament. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Underwood, Councillor West. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Underwood.
It might seem like an obvious one, but how are we going to pay for this? Maybe Director of Corporate Services and Finance.
Yes, Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so obviously with council's current negative unrestricted cash position, as it stands at today, it would deteriorate our cash position. But that being said, in relation to the $13.3 million year-end result, that is on the presumption that the total amount of money spent, just going back to the report item that we just adopted, 823, that the $13.3 million position is on the assumption that at the moment there's 34,000 remaining to be spent, gets fully expended in that time.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillor Cranston.
Can I just comment that, you know, if we're trying to save 2,000 here and 5,000 there, that's not where we should be focused. And I would certainly be voting to approve this. These kind of grassroots sporting activities are what brings people to town. They support our shops, things like that. This is not where we should be focused as a committee. This will just cripple the community. I think there's other ways to do it.
Thank you, Councillor Cranston. Any further discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Councillors, now move to the Director of Engineering Service report. Item 3.1, water supply update. Councillors can have a move and a second. Councillor Fry. Councillor Packham. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Fry.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And drying up out there, people are destocking, people are irrigating a little more for those of us that grow. But we haven't taken the eye off the ball. We've had some decent seasons over the last couple of years, but we have a lot of projects still tracking. I wonder if, in lieu of the Director of Engineering Services, potentially the Manager of Works would be able to help me out with some advice to councillors. Actually, I'll probably amend it. Actually, I'll amend the recommendation that, one, the information be noted, and that, two, council receives an update on water security projects across the region. So we have Wimbendale Dam licensing discussions that we haven't had an update on. The stormwater harvesting would be good to get a proper update on the status. But interestingly, one that hasn't been discussed, if you can throw in there, the underground water exploration, and I believe there was some grants floating around potentially. And then maybe an update on the Upper Macquarie Castlereagh water strategy, New South Wales government, and how we're interacting with that, or if there's been any action on the plan. They had a strategy finalised, but if there's been the execution of the plan or the articulation of the plan, because in that plan, sorry, I know that's a very wordy amendment. What do you got for me, Dave?
He's ready.
So those 4 projects probably specifically is so 3 infrastructure projects and a New South Wales government document and plan. Who's my seconder?
Nick, Mr. Councillor Packham. Yeah, you can read it, please, General Manager.
With a bit of liberty, councillors, it might need a bit of scribbling around on later on, but I've got it. That, 1, the information be noted, and 2, council receive an update on water security projects across the region, Wimbendale flow rules, water harvesting, Macquarie water sharing plan status, and groundwater proposals.
All right, Councillor Fry. Is that right, Councillor?
Mayor, particularly those 3 infrastructure projects is critical to get a little update, and I'm sure the information's in your and Darren's, the director's head. So that I'm only expecting a half pager, literally just to update the councillors. But I think the other one, the strategy and the plan that comes after the strategy and the status of the government, because in that plan, they actually had articulated some larger infrastructure projects that could be a potential for the water sharing for the region. They didn't exclude even big sky thinking in terms of new dams. I mean, there's arguments for and against. but then cross-catchment water sharing plans and pipelines. It was quite a aspirational document that the New South Wales government had put together. And I wonder if, we should, whilst we're doing really great in terms of greenlighting water security projects for the region now, if there's nothing we can, take out of that plan, take out of that strategy, and potentially attack on a JO level as well. So I know you're the representative for the water portfolio, which is handy. So if councillors don't mind, I think it's literally just getting a brain dump from these guys, potentially a little bit of resourcing in terms of understanding that strategy. But I know minds are on other things at the moment, so I'm not expecting it immediately. So if councillors...
Thank you, Councillor Fry. You, yes, Councillor Orban.
Can I add another one onto that too? Just sort of out of the box thinking. Regis Gold Mines had a pipeline planned from the mines down maybe Lithgow area that was going to go through to Blaney, which was going to capture about 8 meg a day. Is there any investigation available to go to look into the pipelining? I mean, if the mine, and I hope it still goes ahead, but if it doesn't, there's maps, everything's been mapped out for that pipeline. It comes very close to our water filtration plant. So would there be something in that?
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is something we've certainly been interested in. And in fact, the council has an agreement with the gold mine to allow the pipes for the water to travel through a lot of our road reserves. One of the items of that is that the water pipeline will go within about, I think it's 1 or 2 kilometres of our waterworks. Whilst there's not been formal final approval, certainly in the discussions that were held was the possibility at some future date, depending on agreement, of connecting into that water supply. The water supply is out of Lithgow. It's stock quality water, and so would cost a fair bit to treat for salt. But if you've got no water, any water's cheap. Certainly the availability in terms of volume is quite high. The pipeline, I think, was originally designed to be around 9 meg, but I think then later on they looked at designing it to around 14 meg. And when you think that during the peak of the drought, we're operating on around 9 meg a day for the city, that available water, if there was no other, would, and if we could do the deal. And I've got to say, forgetting what some people think about gold mines, they're normally pretty good corporate citizens in the areas that they're in, and they will work in with the communities. You just see Newcrest. So definitely it's contained within contracts that have already been signed and agreed, and all the maps have been done.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Good question, Mr. GM. Are you holding any information that gold mine will go ahead?
I'm not holding any information. I've not seen any more than what is going through in the press. The contracts I'm talking about were signed a number of years ago. So they were signed before the issues occurred with the Section 10 that occurred on that location. But certainly, as we all know from press reports, etc., they're reviewing the Section 10. As to whether they will succeed in that space, that's a matter for the federal government, the mine, and I'd imagine working with the relevant community and traditional owner groups.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to get some clarification on the water that's coming through that pipeline, potentially, hypothetically, coming from a colliery in Lithgow, the environmental impact of that, what it means when we say stock water. We're not talking about drinking water here. What it means when we're talking about water filtration, what that looks like, if we can just get an answer on on that for clarity. It's not drinking water.
Mr. General
I'll
Manager.
put in that for, yes, it's definitely not drinking quality. The idea behind it, and I think it fits in with what Councillor Orban's saying, is to look at a raft of packages that might be utilised in the future if we have another really bad drought event. Out of my comment that it would not be cheap water and you would have to completely treat it. It's the same as what we're having to do with the water harvesting water. We've got to do a certain amount of treatment. The water harvesting water will cost us a fair bit, but it is a alternative. And, you know, I suppose the thing we've got to think of is the 10-year drought before the recent before the recent drought, this council had no water restrictions where everywhere else was around. What we had was the way that things are going with climate, etc., caused that situation. So the idea for a council, which is what the council laws have been allowing and facilitating over the recent years, is to try and develop options. So, you know, we've got water coming out of Winbandale, one catchment. We've got water coming out of Chifley, which is another catchment. We access water out of the top of the Blue Mountains, which comes down, so that's giving us access. The idea behind the water harvesting projects is that they'll actually pull water out of other catchment areas. And by doing that, hopefully with changing weather patterns, you can deal with them. It's why the last council resolved to do groundwater studies to see if there's options available in that space. So instead of having one or two, we actually have a lot more options than most councils across the state. But even with our range of options, we had problems. So it would not be cheap to do the water, but if you've got no water, it's cheaper than the supposed, I think it was 15 million a week or something or other to train water into Bathurst, which was the proposal, which could never happen, A, because no one's got 15 million to do it, and secondly, there isn't enough rolling stock trains in New South Wales to be able to bring that volume of water in. So, yeah, it's something to keep exploring, but the ideas that the previous councils had done was with the Regis one, the first thing is to know that the pipeline's there. There's no point worrying about the next thing if you haven't got the option.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Any further discussion? Councillor Packham, you happy with that amendment? Thank you. With that, I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to Director of Cultural and Community Services Report, item 4.1, Bathurst Visitor Information Centre, Toyo High School Cultural Tour 2025. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor West, Councillor Underwood. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Underwood.
I just want to highlight this one and just say congratulations to all involved. 113 Japanese students from Toyo High School participated in this year's visit, came to Bathurst, enjoyed all that we have to offer, enjoyed our friendliness, enjoyed our beautiful parks, enjoyed our beautiful shops and restaurants and hospitality. And 48 Bathurst host families. So just congratulations to all those people in our community that put their hand up to take in an exchange student from the Toyo High School. And also I will note just further down in the report that the Bathurst Visitor Information Centre coordinate these stays. So well done to the Visitor Information Centre and the entire team for doing that. And I know that we're welcoming some more students soon, the end of this week.
End of this week?
Yeah, so
Monday, I think it is.
Looking forward to that. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Underwood. Councillor Orban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there plans, and does it occur that we have a reciprocal visit from Bathurst students to Toyo? Because the actual benefit from that sort of cultural experience is vast, and there is, believe it or not, quite a few students, I don't know, at Bathurst High and also at All Saints that do Japanese as a language, so there'd be quite a bit of interest in it. And as we used to do to Okama, you know, we used to do a trip and members of the public could tag along. So is there that sort of thing that is happening?
Yes, Mr. Director, I think there is.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, Bathurst High has a sister school relationship with Toyo, and there will be a delegation from Bathurst High visiting Toyo in July of this year. There are no plans for a reciprocal sister city visit with Okama at this time, however.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. We move to reports of other committees. Item 1, Traffic Committee Report, 4th of March 2025. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Orban, Councillor Gulliver. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. Put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 2, Policy Committee Report, 5th of March 2025. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Orban. Good. Councillor Fry, is there any discussion? Councillor Fry.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the Director of Environmental Planning and Building Services for taking on notice our, I guess, unhappiness with the process of a certain energy development. And I think that feedback was received by that proponent, and subsequently engagement is occurring. So just like to thank you for acting on it quite quickly, and we'll be able to meet with those proponents at some stage in the future, I'm sure.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to notice of motion. We have number 1, Councillor B. Fry, preserving Bathurst agricultural heritage, extending the heritage zone beyond the CBD. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fry, Councillor Underwood. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Fry.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I thank councillors for hopefully reading my brain dump onto the paper. It's a novel idea, although it's been done in different forms across New South Wales before. And the idea is to pay homage to what we are as effectively the first inland settlement in Australia. And for all our faults, there is heritage, there is history, and there is storytelling to be had there. There are, of course, really important Indigenous yarns to be had too. But cultural heritage in New South Wales is really well. We know the system can be hard and complex, but there are mechanisms of state and federal legislation that protect Indigenous culture in this country. But you know, when it comes to our built heritage in terms of rural and regional Australia, I think Bathurst has, like we do in the CBD here, an opportunity to retain the rural and regional amenity of our beautiful Bathurst LGA. And that's not determining to the high level of articulation of stopping development in those areas. It speaks specifically to large infrastructure projects, including extractive services, situations, energy infrastructure. And indeed, we've got a lot of energy infrastructure being proposed for our regional and rural farmlands at the moment, which do, wrongly or rightly, needs-based or not, they affect the rural amenity and the cultural landscape. This motion comes forward to you in the green paper of an idea just based off quick, fleeting discussions with the director about some of the work that his team does already in the LEP space, and making sure that, we're effectively applying for the right LEP for the LGA that suits the modern era. Of course, heritage is important to us in the CBD, but to me, it can be extended out to make sure that we have a second look at these big infrastructure projects. The motion before you is only investigating whether something like this can be done. It doesn't make a policy stance of this council. It just gives the director the ability to, slightly change the tracking of a project he was already looking at doing, which is the rural strategy, which he's keen to get started on, because that planning work as part of council still needs to be done. Yes, I know we are in a situation where all eyes should be on finance, and we should be tackling that together. But the director has assured me that this work needs to be done at some point. And my green paper and hopefully this council's resolution of adding, you know, an RHCA to that discussion could form a part of that work, come back to us as a council, and we could debate it well and truly then and there. So you'll notice that it does include energy infrastructure, including transmission lines and wind towers and all of these kind of new things that are popping up on our peripherals. I'm saying that Bathurst has an opportunity to be the last sanctuary of untouched rural farmland in this beautiful state of New South Wales and Australia more broadly. So it's not forming any position at council, it's just maybe changing 1 degree of tracking on some of the director's work that he's already performing. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Councillor West.
Okay, so I think in general the Green Paper is great. I think it's a really novel idea. I have 2 issues with it. The first one is the finance. So the second recommendation here is request a report from council staff. I'd like some idea of how much that report might cost in terms of staff time and whether attention will be taken away from finance and redirected to writing a report. So that's one issue. My other issue is that I wonder if it's going to achieve what it's setting out to achieve. My time on council has resulted in me being quite negative about the value of LEPs and whether they're worth the paper they're written on, because they can be overturned, it seems, fairly easily. And even though they were developed with community consultation, it doesn't require community consultation particularly to overturn them. It's, you know, that's my negativity. So I would like to know whether developing LEPs for rural land really achieves anything at all.
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, again, 2 parts to that. One was the cost in staff time to prepare the report, which Councillor Fry's motion proposes. I will concede that it will take some time and therefore can't be given an immediate priority. My understanding is that Councillor Fry would be prepared to accept such a thing. But it's doable in the sense that council has an obligation to review its strategies periodically. The rural strategy is one of those, which hasn't had you know, a review for some time. It will take some time, some council staff time. Councillor Fry's green paper nominates where it is done in other local government areas, and that will take time. We will do some due diligence on what that looks like. But putting an actual dollar figure on it is a bit hard. I don't see it as anything that requires any additional sort of resource allocation, as long as council doesn't require it immediately. In regard to the value of LEPs, I will disagree with your assessment that they can be overturned easily. They cannot be overturned without a proper process. That requires community consultation in every case, and that consultation must be considered. So the question becomes the extent to which that persuades the councillors, rather than that the process is not there. That process is enshrined in legislative framework, and consequently it is possible to amend LEPs, and it is not an overturning process. What Councillor Fry's motion requests is a report on the feasibility. It is not proposing what that outcome might actually look like. That would be a subsequent step, and there would be multiple subsequent steps if the councillors wish the LEP to be amended to include a rural heritage conservation area.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Yes, Councillor West, question?
In that case, would it be possible to amend
Councillor Fry.
I'm happy to accept an amendment that just says the report's not treated with priority, if that suffices to the director. I mean, I don't want it done in 2040, but imminently, in the next couple of weeks, these guys hopefully will be talking with this committee that we've recently set up about the finances immediately. So I'm not expecting you want to answer my stupid point?
Yes, you, Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not asking for a specific get out of work clause, if that's what it might be considered, because it's part of our planning function to look at what other things, what's happening in other regions. So it's actually not going to be particularly onerous as long as it's not expected immediately, because we are fully committed to other projects. I actually don't even know how much time it will take us to do, so I can't even package up what the work commitment might look like. Mr. Mayor, if I can suggest that if we do some sort of first pass preliminary report and then perhaps consult with councillors if it's shaping up to be a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Okay. Councillor Fry. Councillor Orban.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Fry, well, actually, Director, firstly, how many of these wind towers are proposed for the Sunny Corner State Forest?
Mr. Director.
Mr. Mayor, the scoping report from the proponents identifies 80 possible sites. So my understanding is it's up to 80 at Sunny Corner project. There's the Paling Yards project, which is mostly in the Oberon Shire, but some of those towers will be visible, if not present, in the Bathurst LGA as well.
Thank you. Councillor Orban.
Thank you, Mr. Director, because I'm led to believe these towers are about the size of Centrepoint Tower in Sydney, about 289 metres high. How bloody ridiculous is 80 of those on the landscape out there? If you can stop that happening, I'll vote for your notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Any further discussion? Councillor Cranston.
I'd agree with Councillor Orban as well on that, but I just wanted to touch base with a couple of concerns I had, and I've already spoken to Councillor Fry regarding it. And thank you for your commentary, Director, just confirming that this is not a position of council, it's just merely asking for a report and also the timeframes. But one of my concerns was around inadvertently, I guess, creating a false sense of security regarding Bathurst Regional Council's ability to protect the community from these types of things. And the other comment that I wanted to make was actually we're running on the assumption that the community is looking to expand heritage provisions, and we may actually be way off base with that. And so the initial report, just with some initial suggested scope feedback, that would be very much appreciated before we go too far down it. But again, if we can stop those wind farms, I'll vote for the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cranston. Councillor, Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, just some additional comments. And indeed, what you mentioned just prompted me to come back to Councillor West's observation that LEPs can be overturned. And I at local level, I said that it's a process to go through. I should also have added that state policies override local policies. And so the LEP work will require, it will be required to be considered, but if a state policy says X, that is possible to override. So that would be the context that LEPs do have only limited value when you're dealing with state significant development.
Councillor Packham.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Director, would that be the case in regard to the wind towers? that it would be a state responsibility to approve that development?
Mr. Director.
Mr. Mayor, yes, it's a state significant development. The application's not yet lodged, but they have received the SEARs, the Secretary Environmental Requirements, so they will be lodging a DA based on those SEARs in due course. Council will have the opportunity to provide comment when the application is available.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I just want to, I guess, echo some of the sentiments of other councillors who've already spoken. There's already, you know, when we heritage sensitive planning measures that guide Bathurst's future growth, I just, I guess, want to make the statement that it's often felt amongst the business community locally that it's really difficult getting that balance between protecting and celebrating our heritage whilst also looking to the future. So I just, you know, want to highlight, like, we don't want to be potentially creating more red tape. And I guess that's where the definitions part is really important, because with this, we're only talking about major infrastructure. So that's a key take out for me. We're not talking about someone's big shed that they want to build on their property. So, and then the other thing I just wanted, I guess this is actually more of a question, because we've just talked about how state government could override and so forth, but it actually lists here, oh no, sorry, that was the next page, because there were examples. So with the Blue Mountains and City of Blue Mountains LEP, outcome, establish wide-ranging heritage conservation areas that control, so they do control large-scale developments and protect scenic corridors. Is there a particular example of a development that this, I mean, just been that you've looked into it, that it has stopped, or something that what does this look like in practice for a council that seems to have successfully executed something in this space?
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
For Blue Mountains, and I'm not expecting us to be as onerous as their plans. They have a World Heritage, you know, tick against their rural or their bush amenity, I guess, their national parks. It affects the airport. You would have seen little signs, no blue sky over Blue Mountains. It affects the path of the airport and what they see there. That's one off the top of the head that I saw when researching this. Definitely they have not dissimilar heritage expectations in the CBD itself, but theirs also expands in a certain way to urban creep, so urban expansion area, and kind of controlling that. And I've particularly left that out of this potential one, so that we're not telling developers where not to buy, or because we still need housing, we still need construction industry, we still need that in the city, and we are growing, whether we like it or not. It is an issue. So I think Blue Mountains their USP is that national park, and it's not dissimilar to what I'm trying to emulate here. Is although ours is a more recent heritage classification in terms of we basically, you know, created farmland. But it is a point in time that I'm trying to protect, and a sense of rurality and a sense of connection that Bathurst has to that heritage theme, I suppose. While I'm on my feet, should I close? Anyone else want to talk?
Yeah, close if you could.
Yeah, happy for me to close, Councillor Wright. Yeah, I think it's more about ensuring that there is a second look at these projects, and like the directors explained, we always get overridden by state and federal policy, law, legislation, precedents in the courts all the time. It happens all the time. But I'm hoping that you know, and again, this motion is only speaking to a feasibility of a future plan of the LEP, and if we do that, and if we do that. But what it could provide is a statement to other levels of government when they're doing their own assessment. The existence of a policy of this nature alone should play heavily on the decision of an independent planning board or commission or, you know, body of the day. I think if passed, and if we get down that track further, by this body politic supporting something on a local level which says, hey, we're proud of our heritage and we want to keep it as much as we can, I think would speak in volumes to any kind of official consultation document we put forward project to project. So if it gets up, if it goes to a point where we develop a policy or an LEP change, that will signal to other levels of government that potentially, you know, Bathurst is interested in keeping its rural amenity. So it's a what if, and I'm not trying to tell, you know, Farmer Joe that he can't put a 100-metre chook shed on his farm. That's not what this is intended for. It's simply to allow the director to investigate more on our behalf. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pryor. Council, I'll now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Council now move to item number 2, Councillor N. Cranston, accountability and transparency questions taken on notice. Councillors, can I move in a second? Councillor Cranston, Councillor Underwood. Councillor, can I have a discussion? Any discussion? Thank you. Councillor Cranston.
Pretty quick one, I think, to finish with. It just essentially aims to formalise the process of questions taken on notice. We've had a member tonight in the gallery speak to their experience, essentially just getting letters to themselves or having to know who the person was to track down that information. So essentially all I'm asking is that we gather just the question and the councillor that wrote it. I have had some concerns around privacy issues, so perhaps we can just amend that slightly to have it maybe an opt-in for the name of the gallery if someone's asking that. Happy to do that, but essentially the work's already done and I'm just asking for that to come in a report, not dissimilar to the way Orange Regional Council do it.
Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's no privacy issue because I already record their name in the minutes. So it's already there. And when we talk to people, and I say things like, when you stay in the room, you're going to be recorded or whatever. Admittedly, it's before the recording of the meeting starts, but it is recorded, so it's in the public domain.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cranston. Yes, Councillor West.
I think this is a great motion. I have notice of motion. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great notice of motion. I myself, before I was elected, sat in the gallery wishing that I could get the answer to that question because it was an interesting question, but it was going to be taken on notice and whatever. So I fully support this. My only hesitation is cost. Is it going to cost council any sort of significant amount to provide this?
Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd say from the councillor perspective, I would think minimal from our experience, but also the councillors, if they want that information, I would provide readily. In terms of that position from members of the public, it may be limited, but I do have significant concerns that it could create a major workload if people see the usage of public forum as a way of tying up the council's time. There hasn't been anything significant in that space, but that is probably the main concern that I would see that could happen.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, this would be an obvious one that I can really get behind. I guess I just want to tap into the community survey here when we talk about receiving some of the worst results. We just have to face that fact about that. And something that my dad sort of taught me around the SRV experience and campaigning and so forth. It's really about small gestures of rebuilding trust, I think, with our community, and something like this really speaks to that. Just something as simple as answers that are already existing, getting it in the public domain so people feel like they're a part of the conversation. So I would just love to see, unanimous support. I just think it's a cracker, and yeah, good on you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor West, question?
Yeah, following up on that, on the General Manager's response, is there some way to limit that? Is there some way to make sure that costs don't blow out? And as part of this, this isn't really a question, but I'd just like to respond to the idea that we had the really bad results in the community survey by commenting that when we were told about our bad results, we were also told that councils across the board had got results that were worse
Thank
than
you,
normal.
Councillor.
Point of order, I'm sorry, that's not a question.
Thank you. Mr General Manager.
Probably a couple of questions. I'd just like to say the community survey had some bad results, but it had a lot of good results. And I think that's why the whole document's out there, because I think people need to get a mixture. You're quite right, there were some there, but you look at some of the reports on the facilities that were operating. In terms of my discomfort with the potential for there being a blowout, there's probably two ways of controlling it. The first one, if the request is something that's so significant in time, then I'd be saying that that's got to be a GIPA request, because people can get up and just ask for something, but if it's going to absorb a huge amount of time, I will. And the response back to the council will be, this request is being referred as a GIPA because of the usage. The second, and probably the primary way of dealing with it, I'd come back to you as councillors and say, this is not working, or it is working. I'm taking it something that we would review. It's a bit like when you as councillors asked for the questions on notice from last October, November. I think we've done November, December, February, and tonight's one. So we've seen how that was, to find out where there were huge numbers. I think there was about 18 at the November one, and since then we haven't gone over about 4. So that's why I was saying the council ones is quite manageable. If the community ones weren't manageable, certainly I'd be coming back to you, and you'd expect me to explain why.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor Fry.
Thanks, General Manager, for the clarification. I think absolutely it's good to just have a rolling action items table on there of things that are raised, taken on notice and answered. Absolutely, I think I'm happy with this and to go forward as is, as long as it will be reviewed by councils. Councillors need to keep an eye on this so people aren't taking the mickey and increasing the workload for an already stretched resource point here. So I will say probably flies in the face of our code of meeting practice. So it totally discounts the fact that we don't record anything from public forum. This is a form of recording. So we'd likely have to make a change to the code of meeting practice. What's that? What's in yeah, so I think we'd have to take that into consideration and happy to review this in a couple of months. But I see no harm in collating all that data. Like I said, if it's useful data, if somebody tripped on a rock in the park and they took it on notice and it's in the paper, I'm sure it's exactly what you're trying to achieve. So well done, Council.
I'd like to close, Councillor Cranston. Oh, sorry, Councillor Underwood. Didn't see your hand.
Sorry, that's all right.
Sorry.
Just going off the debate tonight in the room, is it possible to put a D, trial it for 6 months and then come back to it to see if it's working? Yeah, or 6, happy?
That's right. You want to amend that?
Yeah, just a D, put it in as a 6-month
You
trial.
happy with that,
for 6
Councillor
months, just so
Cranston?
that we know that it comes back to us in 6 months. We go, yeah, working, great, cool, easy one. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. You want to read that, Mr GM?
Mr Mayor, I just had as item D, trial this proposal for 6 months and review at that time, and that council review
Fine.
at that time.
Fine, Councillor Underwood. Okay, no further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to Council's Delegates Report. Item number 1, Minutes, Bathurst Regional Youth Council, 10th of February 2025. Councillor, can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Pryor, Councillor Underwood. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Council move to resolve in the confidential committee of the whole to deal with confidential reports. Council, you also note that there is a confidential mirror minute which, in respect to financial sustainability and governance, accountability, and the reason being for deals with personal matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors, disclosure of which would not be in the public interest as it would reveal personal details of the individuals concerned. With that, could we cease? We're moving to resolving the confidential committee of the whole. Could we cease recording of the council meeting? Councillors, we now are due to go into confidential committee. Oh, we need a second. Sorry, moving a second. Councillor Queens, Councillor Fry. Are there members of the public and press who wish to make representation of the council as to whether the matter should or should not be dealt with in confidential matters? As there are no representatives, I now put the motion to go into confidential committee. All those for? Against? Carried. Okay, move to item 14, resolving to open council. Resolving to open council. Councillors can have a movement and a seconder. Councillor Pride, Councillor Underwood. Councillors, any discussion? No discussions. I'll now put the motion. All those for? Against? Carried. Could we please ensure that recording of the meeting has been turned back on? Wait, the doors are opened. Adopt report of the committee of the whole. Nick, before we do this, I think you'll have to declare an interest. And Councillor
Mayor, I have a pecuniary interest in point 12.14, as I'm the CEO of the applicant, and I'll remove myself from the room.
Ben? Oh, I did that one first. Okay.
This one. So through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Council, during closed session in relation to report item DCSF confidential item 1.4, being lease of lot 7 DP 806109 5 White Parade, Windradine. Council resolved that council defer consideration of the lease of 5 White Parade to a future meeting of council. So you can come back in again now.
Nick. He's probably gone. Yep. And then we do. I've been.
Yeah, I'm declaring a pecuniary interest on items 13.1.1 and 13.1.2 as my business profits from the festival attached with these two tenders. So I won't vote and I'll leave the room.
Thank you, Councillor Fry.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, in relation to DCSF confidential item 1.1, tender 36.00848, hire of ice rink and associated infrastructure for Bathurst Winter Festival. Council resolved that council reject all tenders for the hire of the ice rink and associated infrastructure for the Bathurst Winter Festival following the recent examination of council's current financial position and funding for the event, and as funding for the event has since been reallocated to other operations within council. And in relation to confidential item 1.2, tender 36.00849, design and installation for illumination for Bathurst Winter Festival. Council resolved that council reject all tenders for the design and installation for illumination for Bathurst Winter Festival on the basis that following the recent examination of council's current financial position, funding for this event has since been reallocated to other operations within council. Ben, come back in.
Oh, but yes. Have you given those back in? Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the other items moved by council during confidential session in relation to DCSF confidential item 1.3, rural licence of lot 6, deposited plan 1262801. Council resolved that council enters into a rural licence agreement with Dwyer Farming for multiple lots, lot 6 in deposited plan 1262801 for a period of 5 years as detailed in the report and subject to council's land management guidelines and insurance requirements, and delegate authority to the General Manager to execute necessary documents associated with this licence. We've done 1.4. In relation to item 1.5, residential lease renewal 200 College Road, Mount Panorama, council resolved that council enters into a lease for part lot 2, DP 749758, 200 College Road, Mount Panorama, to Kent and Melissa Bestwick for a period of 12 months, with 4 12-month option periods as detailed in the report, and B, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute the necessary documents associated with the lease. In relation to item 1.6, licence renewal Mount Panorama Storage Shed Part Lot 1 DP 534118, the council resolved that Council A enters into a licence agreement with Sign Event Proprietary Limited for Mount Panorama Sign Event Shed, being Part Lot 1 in deposited plan 534118 for a 5-year period as detailed in the report, and B, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute necessary documents associated with this licence. In relation to item 1.7, rural licence agreement multiple lots Church Lane, Kelso, council resolved that Council A enter into a rural licence agreement for 57A to 61 Church Lane, Kelso for a period of 3 years with Amanda Mumberson, as detailed in the report and subject to Council's land management guidelines and insurance requirements, and B, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute the necessary documents associated with this licence. In relation to report item 1.8, rural licence of lot 2 DP 1234553 Swanbrook Street, Windradyne, Council resolved that Council enter into a rural licence agreement for lot 2 depositor plan 1234553 Swanbrook Street, Windradyne with Amanda Mumberson for a period of 3 years as detailed in the report and subject to Council's land management guidelines and insurance requirements, and B, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute the necessary documents associated with this licence. In relation to report item 1.9, lease of lot 3, DP 1104560, 116 Bentinck Street. Council resolved that Council A accepts the proposal to lease 116 Bentinck Street to Veritas House as detailed in the report, and B, delegates authority to the General Manager to execute the necessary documents associated with this lease. In relation to item 1.10, financial statements 2024 Challenge Bathurst, Council resolved that the information be noted. In relation to item 1.11, request for financial assistance Sutter Street, Council resolved that Council not provide financial assistance to the landowners for the reasons outlined in the report. And then into Director of Engineering Services confidential reports, item 2.1, Central New South Wales Joint Organisations tender for line marking services. Council resolved that Council A accept and sign a contract with Roman numeral 1, ACT Line Marking Proprietary Limited, Roman numeral 2, Gumbay Holdings Proprietary Limited, trading as Avante Line Marking, Roman numeral 3, Central West Line Marking Proprietary Limited, and Roman numeral number 4, Complete Line Marking Services Proprietary Limited, for the supply of line marking services, and B, advise the Central New South Wales Joint Organisation of its decision. And in relation to report item 2.2, tender 36.00846 temporary fencing Mount Panorama, Council resolved that Council accepts the tender from TFH Hire Services Proprietary Limited for the supply and installation of temporary fence hire for Mount Panorama for $501,482 inclusive of GST for a period of 2 years, subject to adjustments and provisional amounts. And in relation to mayoral minute, entitled Financial Sustainability and Governance Accountability Closed Session, Council resolved that Council 1 notes the General Manager's performance, and 2 advises the General Manager of suggested organisational changes as discussed in the closed session, noting Council does not determine organisation structure.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillor, could I move in a second to adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole? Councillor Wright, Councillor Orban. Councillor, any discussion? Councillor now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. I declare the council now declare the meeting closed at 9.